Maya Rodriguez had been living on the streets of downtown Los Angeles for 8 months. At 19 years old, she carried everything she owned in a worn backpack that had seen better days. Her dark hair was usually pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her clothes were layers of whatever she could find at local shelters or donation centers. The concrete steps of the old Paramount Theater had become her regular sleeping spot. It wasn't the most comfortable place, but the wide overhang protected her from rain, and the security guards knew her well enough to let her stay as long as she kept the area clean and didn't cause trouble. Maya's journey to homelessness hadn't been sudden. After aging out of the foster care system at 18, she had tried to make it work. She got a job at a fast food restaurant and rented a tiny room in a shared house, but when she got sick and missed too many days of work, she lost her job. Without income, she couldn't pay rent. The landlord gave her 2 weeks to find the money, but 2 weeks wasn't enough time to find another job and earn first month's rent plus deposit. That's how she ended up on the streets with nothing but her backpack, a thin sleeping bag, and determination to survive. Every morning, Maya would wake up before sunrise and fold her sleeping bag neatly. She had learned that looking organized and clean made a big difference in how people treated her. She would walk to the public library when it opened at 9, where she could use the bathroom to wash her face and brush her teeth. The librarians were kind to her, and she spent most of her days there reading books and using the free internet to look for jobs. Maya was smart. She had graduated high school with good grades despite moving between foster homes. She dreamed of going to college someday, maybe studying social work so she could help other kids like herself. But right now, survival was her main focus. During the day, she would walk around the city looking for work. She applied at restaurants, stores, and cleaning companies. Some places wouldn't even let her fill out an application once they saw her appearance. Others would take her information but never call back. The few places that did offer her work were usually day labor jobs that paid cash but weren't steady. Maya had learned which churches served free meals on which days of the week. Monday was at St. Mary's, Tuesday at the community center, Wednesday at the Methodist church, and so on. She never took more than she needed, and she always said thank you. Some of the volunteers knew her by name now and would ask how she was doing. The hardest part wasn't the hunger or even sleeping outside. It was the way some people looked at her, like she wasn't human. They would cross the street to avoid walking near her, or pretend not to see her when she politely asked if they had any spare change. Maya understood that people were scared or didn't know what to say, but it still hurt. There were other homeless people in the area, and Maya had made a few friends. There was Robert, an older man who used to be a teacher before he lost his job and then his apartment. He would sometimes share books with her and tell her stories about his students. There was also Carmen, a woman in her 30s who had been on the streets for 2 years. Carmen taught Maya important survival skills, like which areas of the city were safe and which ones to avoid. Maya tried to stay positive despite everything. She would tell herself that this was temporary, that things would get better. She kept a small notebook where she wrote down her thoughts and plans for the future. Writing helped her feel like she still had hope and dreams, even when everything seemed impossible. One particularly cold night in November, Maya was having trouble sleeping. The temperature had dropped unexpectedly, and her thin sleeping bag wasn't enough to keep her warm. She decided to walk around to keep her blood moving and stay warm until morning. The streets were mostly empty except for a few cars passing by. As she walked past the old bank building on 5th Street, something caught her eye. There was a small bag sitting next to a trash can, almost hidden in the shadows. It looked like someone had dropped it or maybe thrown it away by mistake. Maya looked around to see if anyone was nearby who might have lost it, but the street was empty. She approached the bag carefully. It was a small dark leather bag with a zipper. It looked expensive, not like something someone would throw away on purpose. Maya picked it up and felt that it was heavy, heavier than it should be for its size. She looked around again, thinking maybe someone was nearby looking for it. After waiting for a few minutes and seeing no one, Maya decided to open the bag to see if there was any identification inside so she could return it to its owner. She found a quiet spot under a streetlight and carefully unzipped the bag. What she saw inside made her heart stop beating for a moment. The bag was full of money. Not just a few bills, but stacks and stacks of cash. There were mostly $100 bills, neatly organized and held together with rubber bands. Maya had never seen so much money in one place in her entire life. Her hands shook as she quickly zipped the bag shut and looked around to make sure no one had seen her. Her mind was racing with questions. Who did this money belong to? How did it end up next to a trash can? Was it stolen money? Was someone going to come looking for it? Maya knew that finding this money could change everything for her. She could get a room somewhere, buy food, get clean clothes for job interviews. She could maybe even start taking classes at the community college. But she also knew that the money didn't belong to her, and taking it would be wrong. She sat there on the sidewalk, holding the bag and trying to decide what to do. The cold wind was still blowing, and she was still homeless and hungry. The money in her hands could solve all of her immediate problems. But Maya had been raised to be honest even when it was difficult. Her last foster mother, Mrs. Johnson, had always told her that doing the right thing wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. As Maya sat there in the cold, holding what felt like a miracle in her hands, she had no idea that her decision about what to do with this money would not only change her life but also touch the hearts of thousands of people. The choice she was about to make would test everything she believed about right and wrong, and would ultimately lead to something more valuable than any amount of money could buy. Maya spent the rest of that cold night walking around with the bag clutched tightly in her hands. She couldn't stop thinking about what was inside and what she should do with it. Every few blocks she would stop under a streetlight and count the money again, just to make sure she wasn't dreaming. There was exactly $47,000 in the bag. More money than Maya had ever imagined having. She kept thinking about all the things she could do with it. She could rent a small apartment, buy a car, get nice clothes for job interviews, and maybe even enroll in college classes. For someone who had been counting every penny and looking for change on the ground, this felt like winning the lottery. But every time she started to convince herself that maybe she could keep the money, she remembered Mrs. Johnson's voice telling her about the importance of honesty. She also thought about how terrible she would feel if someone had lost money that belonged to her, especially if they needed it for something important like medicine or rent. When the sun came up, Maya made her decision. She would try to find the owner of the money and return it. She knew it was the right thing to do, even though it was probably the hardest decision she had ever made. Maya's first stop was the police station. She had always been a little scared of police officers because she worried they might give her trouble for being homeless. But she knew this was important. She walked into the downtown police station and approached the front desk. The officer at the desk looked at her suspiciously when she said she wanted to report found money. Maya could tell he was judging her based on her appearance. Her clothes were wrinkled and she hadn't had a proper shower in days. But when she showed him the bag and explained where she had found it, his attitude completely changed. Officer Martinez, the policeman who took her report, was amazed by Maya's honesty. He told her that in his 20 years as a police officer, he had rarely seen someone return such a large amount of money, especially someone who clearly needed it themselves. He took down all the details about where and when Maya had found the bag, and he assured her that they would do everything they could to find the rightful owner. The police procedure was that they would hold the money for 90 days. If no one came forward to claim it with proper proof of ownership, then Maya could legally keep it. Officer Martinez explained that many people never bothered to report lost money to the police, so there was a good chance no one would claim it. Maya left the police station feeling both proud of herself and terrified that she had just given away her only chance at escaping homelessness. She spent the day at the library as usual, but she couldn't concentrate on reading. She kept thinking about the money sitting in the police station and wondering if she had made a huge mistake. Word spread quickly among the other homeless people in the area about what Maya had done. Some of them thought she was crazy for giving up so much money. Robert, the former teacher, told her he was proud of her for doing the right thing. But he also worried about how she would survive while waiting to see if anyone claimed the money. Carmen, her friend who had been on the streets longer, was more direct. She told Maya that she was being naive, that rich people who lose that kind of money probably wouldn't even miss it, and that Maya deserved a chance to get back on her feet. But Maya stuck to her decision, even though part of her wondered if Carmen was right. 3 days after Maya turned in the money, Officer Martinez called her with surprising news. Someone had come forward claiming to own the money, but their story didn't add up. The person couldn't explain exactly where they had lost it, or provide any details about how the money was organized in the bag. The police were suspicious that this person was just trying to claim money that wasn't theirs. Over the next 2 weeks, 3 more people came to the police station claiming the money was theirs. But none of them could provide convincing proof. One person said they had lost the money while walking to the bank, but couldn't explain why they were carrying so much cash. Another claimed it was their rent money, but couldn't remember which streets they had walked on or when exactly they had lost it. Maya visited the police station once a week to check on the status of her case. Each time, Officer Martinez would update her on the people who had tried to claim the money. He told her that her detailed account of exactly where and when she found the bag was helping them identify the false claims. During this waiting period, Maya's daily life continued much the same as before. She still slept on the theater steps, still went to the library every day, and still looked for work. But something had changed inside her. The experience of finding the money and choosing to return it had given her a new sense of confidence and pride in herself. Other people had started to notice Maya's character too. The librarians, who had always been kind to her, began offering her small opportunities to help around the library in exchange for gift cards to local restaurants. Mrs. Chen, who ran a small grocery store where Maya sometimes asked for day-old bread, started saving items that were close to their expiration date for Maya to take home. Maya also started volunteering at the soup kitchen where she sometimes ate meals. She wanted to give back to the community that had been helping her survive. The volunteer coordinator, a woman named Sarah, was impressed by Maya's work ethic and positive attitude despite her difficult circumstances. One evening, about 3 weeks after finding the money, Maya was at the soup kitchen helping serve dinner when Sarah approached her with an interesting proposition. Sarah explained that the soup kitchen was looking for someone to help with their evening operations, and they could offer her a small salary plus a place to stay in the back room of the facility. It wasn't much, just a tiny room with a bed and a desk, but it would mean Maya wouldn't have to sleep outside anymore. The job would involve helping with food preparation, serving meals, and cleaning up afterwards. The pay wasn't enough to rent a real apartment, but it was steady work and would give her an address to put on job applications. Maya was overjoyed at this opportunity. After months of uncertainty, she finally had a chance at stable housing and income. She accepted the position immediately and moved into the small room that very night. As Maya lay in her own bed for the first time in months, she thought about the chain of events that had led her here. If she hadn't found that money, or if she had decided to keep it instead of turning it in, she might never have met Officer Martinez, who had started checking in on her and helping her navigate city services. She might never have felt confident enough to start volunteering at the soup kitchen, which led to her getting this job. Maya was beginning to understand that sometimes doing the right thing brings unexpected rewards, not necessarily in the form you expect, but in ways that end up being even more valuable. She still didn't know if anyone would ever claim the money, but she was starting to realize that the most important thing she had gained from the experience wasn't the possibility of keeping the money, but the knowledge that she could trust herself to make good decisions even when they were difficult. Little did Maya know that her story was about to take another unexpected turn, one that would bring her more attention than she had ever imagined possible. Maya had been working at the soup kitchen for 2 weeks when everything changed. She was in the back room organizing donated clothes when Sarah knocked on her door with an excited expression on her face. A local newspaper reporter named Jennifer Walsh had been at the soup kitchen earlier that day doing a story about homelessness in the city. While interviewing volunteers and guests, someone had mentioned Maya's story about finding the money and turning it in to the police. Jennifer was intrigued and wanted to interview Maya for a human interest story. At first, Maya was hesitant. She didn't want attention or publicity. She had turned in the money because it was the right thing to do, not because she wanted recognition, but Sarah convinced her that sharing her story might inspire other people and could also help raise awareness about the challenges faced by homeless youth. Jennifer Walsh was a kind woman in her 40s who had been writing for the Los Angeles Tribune for over 15 years. When she met Maya, she was immediately struck by the young woman's dignity and thoughtfulness. Maya spoke clearly about her experiences, never asking for pity but simply telling her truth with honesty and grace. The interview lasted about an hour. Jennifer asked Maya about her background, how she became homeless, what it was like living on the streets, and of course about finding the money. Maya explained her thought process that night, how she knew the money could change her life, but also knew it wasn't hers to keep. Maya also talked about the kindness she had experienced from people like Officer Martinez, the librarian Sarah at the soup kitchen, and the various volunteers who had treated her with respect and dignity. She wanted people to understand that while homelessness was difficult, there were many good people who cared about helping others. When Jennifer asked what Maya hoped to do in the future, Maya's eyes lit up. She talked about her dream of going to college and studying social work. She wanted to help other young people who aged out of foster care, to make sure they didn't have to face the same challenges she had faced. The article was published on a Sunday morning with the headline, "Homeless Teen Returns $47,000, Restores Faith in Human Nature." Jennifer had written a beautiful piece that captured not just the facts of Maya's story, but also her character and resilience. The article described Maya as someone who had every reason to be bitter about her circumstances, but instead chose to maintain her integrity and hope for the future. Maya had no idea what was about to happen next. She went to work at the soup kitchen that Sunday as usual, but throughout the day people kept showing up asking to speak with her. Word was spreading quickly, not just locally but online as well. Someone had shared the newspaper article on social media, and it was being shared and reshared thousands of times. By Monday morning, Maya's phone, which was an old phone donated by the soup kitchen for her to use for work, was ringing constantly. News stations from around the country wanted to interview her. The story had touched something in people, especially at a time when the news was often filled with negative stories about dishonesty and selfishness. The first television interview was with the local morning news show. Maya was nervous about being on camera, but the news anchors were warm and encouraging. They asked her similar questions to what Jennifer had asked, and Maya answered them with the same honest simplicity that had impressed the newspaper reporter. The interview aired that Tuesday morning, and by Wednesday, Maya was being contacted by national news networks. CNN, NBC, and ABC all wanted to feature her story. Maya was overwhelmed by all the attention, but Sarah helped her navigate the requests and make sure she felt comfortable with each interview. What surprised Maya most was not just the media attention, but the response from regular people. The soup kitchen started receiving calls from people who wanted to donate money specifically to help Maya go to college. Others wanted to donate to the soup kitchen in her honor. Some people simply called to tell Maya that her story had inspired them. One call particularly moved Maya. It was from a woman named Linda who lived in Ohio. Linda explained that she had been going through a difficult time and had been feeling like there were no good people left in the world. Reading about Maya's decision to return the money had restored her faith in humanity and inspired her to start volunteering at her local homeless shelter. The most surprising call came from Dr. Patricia Williams, the dean of admissions at a local community college. Dr. Williams had seen Maya's story on the news and was impressed not just by her honesty, but by her articulate interviews and her clear goals for the future. The college wanted to offer Maya a full scholarship to study social work. Maya couldn't believe what was happening. In a matter of days, she had gone from being an invisible homeless girl to having opportunities she had never dreamed possible. The scholarship would cover not just tuition, but also textbooks and a small living stipend. She could start classes in the spring semester, but the biggest surprise was yet to come. On Friday afternoon, exactly 1 month after Maya had found the money, Officer Martinez called her with news that would change everything once again. A man named David Chen had come to the police station that morning. Unlike the previous people who had tried to claim the money, David had a completely believable story and proof to back it up. He explained that he owned several small restaurants in Chinatown and had been carrying the money to make a cash purchase of new equipment. For one of his restaurants, David had security camera footage from his restaurant showing him leaving with the bag of money. He also had paperwork for the equipment purchase he had planned to make, showing that he needed exactly $47,000 in cash. Most importantly, he could describe the exact contents of the bag, including how the money was organized, and the specific rubber bands that held the bills together. Officer Martinez told Maya that there was no doubt the money belonged to David Chen. Maya felt a mix of emotions hearing this news. Part of her had secretly hoped that no one would claim the money and she could keep it. But a bigger part of her was relieved to know that the money was going back to its rightful owner. someone who had worked hard for it and needed it for his business. David Chen had asked to meet Maya in person. He wanted to thank her personally for her honesty and integrity. Officer Martinez arranged for them to meet at the police station the next day. Maya was nervous about meeting David. She wondered if he would be angry, that she had found his money and didn't return it immediately, even though she had followed proper procedures by turning it into the police. She also felt a little embarrassed by all the media attention her story had received. When Saturday arrived, Maya put on the nicest clothes she had, which were still pretty simple, and walked to the police station with butterflies in her stomach. She had no idea that this meeting would lead to another completely unexpected turn in her story, one that would show her that sometimes the universe has ways of rewarding good deeds that are more amazing than anything you could plan or imagine. As Maya walked up the steps of the police station, she thought about how much her life had changed in just 1 month. She had gone from sleeping on the streets to having a job and a place to live, from being invisible to being known across the country, from having no hope of college to having a full scholarship, all because she had made the decision to do the right thing on one cold night when no one was watching. David Chen was not what Maya had expected. She had imagined an older, serious businessman, but David was only in his early 30s with a warm smile and kind eyes. He was waiting in the police station lobby with Officer Martinez when Maya arrived. When David saw Maya, he immediately stood up and walked toward her with his hand extended for a handshake. But instead of shaking her hand, he surprised her by giving her a respectful bow, a gesture from his Chinese heritage that showed deep appreciation and respect. David spoke with a slight accent, and his voice was filled with emotion as he thanked Maya for her honesty. He explained that the $47,000 represented months of savings from his 3 small restaurants. He had been planning to buy new kitchen equipment that would help him expand his business and provide jobs for more people in his community. When David had realized the money was missing, he had been devastated. He had retraced his steps over and over, searching everywhere he had walked that night. He had even offered a $5,000 reward for anyone who found and returned the money, but no one had come forward. He had begun to think the money was gone forever. David told Maya that when he saw her story on the news, he couldn't believe it. Not only had someone found his money, but that person was a homeless teenager who had every reason to keep it, but chose to do the right thing instead. He said that in his culture, such honesty and integrity were considered the highest virtues, and he was deeply moved by Maya's character. Maya was touched by David's gratitude, but she was also curious about something. She asked him how he had found out that his money might be at the police station, since Officer Martinez had said that many people don't think to report lost money to the police. David smiled and explained that his daughter, Susan, who was in college studying journalism, had been following Maya's story on social media. When Susan saw the news reports about the amount of money and where it had been found, she realized it might be her father's missing money. She convinced him to go to the police station to check. Officer Martinez then formally returned the money to David, who had to sign several documents proving his ownership. As David counted through the stacks of bills to confirm everything was there, he kept shaking his head in amazement that every single dollar had been returned. But then David surprised everyone in the room. After confirming that all his money was there, he pulled out $5,000 and tried to hand it to Maya. He explained that this was the reward money he had offered, and Maya deserved it for her honesty. Maya was stunned. $5,000 was more money than she had ever imagined having, but after thinking for a moment, she politely refused the reward. She explained that she hadn't returned the money to get a reward. She had done it because it was the right thing to do, and accepting money for doing the right thing didn't feel right to her. David was impressed by Maya's response, but he wasn't ready to give up. He told Maya that he wanted to find some way to thank her and help her achieve her dreams of going to college and helping other young people. Maya mentioned that she had already been offered a scholarship, so she didn't need money for school. Then David had an idea. He asked Maya if she would be interested in a part-time job at one of his restaurants. The job would allow her to work around her college schedule, and it would give her experience in business management and customer service. He also offered to provide her with professional clothing and meals during her work shifts. Maya was interested in the job offer, but she wanted to be honest with David about her situation. She explained that she was currently living at the soup kitchen where she worked. and she didn't have much experience in restaurants. She was worried that she might not be qualified for the job he was offering. David waved away her concerns. He told her that honesty and work ethic were more important than experience, and those were qualities she had already demonstrated. He also said that one of his restaurants was only a few blocks away from the community college she would be attending, so it would be convenient for her. Maya accepted David's job offer, feeling grateful for yet another unexpected opportunity that had come from her decision to return the money. They arranged for her to start working the following week, after she had a chance to give proper notice at the soup kitchen. As they were finishing their meeting at the police station, David asked Maya if she would be willing to meet his family. He wanted his wife and daughter to meet the young woman who had restored his faith in humanity. Maya agreed, and they arranged to have dinner at David's house the following Sunday. The news of Maya meeting David and getting a job offer from him quickly spread through the media. The story that had already captured people's attention became even more compelling with this new development. The narrative of the honest, homeless girl who not only returned to fortune, but was then rewarded for her integrity resonated with people across the country. More job offers started coming in for Maya from other business owners who had heard her story. A local bank wanted to hire her as a customer service representative. A nonprofit organization offered her a position helping other homeless youth. Several retail stores reached out with management training opportunities. Maya was overwhelmed by all the offers, but she had already committed to working for David, and she wanted to honor that commitment. She politely declined the other opportunities, though she kept the contact information in case things didn't work out. The following Sunday, Maya took 3 buses to get to David's house in a quiet residential neighborhood. She was nervous about meeting his family, worried that they might not be as welcoming as David had been. She had bought a small bouquet of flowers with some of her earnings from the soup kitchen as a gesture of appreciation. David's house was modest, but comfortable, with a small front yard filled with carefully tended plants. When Maya knocked on the door, it was opened by a woman about David's age with a friendly face and apron around her waist. This was Linda, David's wife, who welcomed Maya with a warm hug as if she were a longtime family friend. Their daughter Susan, who was home from college for the weekend, was equally welcoming. Susan was studying journalism and was fascinated by how Maya's story had spread through social media and traditional news outlets. She asked Maya thoughtful questions about how it felt to suddenly be in the public eye. During dinner, Maya learned more about David's family and their journey to America. David had immigrated with his parents when he was a teenager, and he had worked in restaurants since he was 15 years old. He had saved for years to open his first restaurant, and he understood what it was like to struggle and work hard for opportunities. Linda, David's wife, worked as a nurse at a local hospital. She told Maya that she often saw homeless patients and was touched by Maya's story because it reminded her that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their circumstances. Susan shared that Maya's story had inspired her to write her senior journalism project about homelessness among young adults who age out of foster care. She wanted to use her platform as a future journalist to bring attention to important social issues. As the evening progressed, Maya realized that David's family wasn't just being kind to her out of obligation. They genuinely enjoyed her company and were interested in her thoughts and dreams. For the first time in years, Maya felt like she was part of a family, even if it was just for one evening. When it was time for Maya to leave, Linda packed up leftovers for her to take back to the soup kitchen. David drove her home, and during the car ride he told her something that would stick with her forever. He said that finding someone with her level of integrity in today's world was rarer than finding money on the street, and that her character was worth more than any amount of cash. As Maya got ready for bed that night in her small room at the soup kitchen, she reflected on how much her life had changed. But more importantly, she thought about how much she had learned about herself. She had discovered that she could trust her own moral compass even when it was difficult, and that doing the right thing often led to outcomes that were better than anything she could have planned. Maya's first day at David's restaurant, Golden Dragon, was both exciting and nerve-wracking. She had worked at fast food places before, but this was different. Golden Dragon was a family-style Chinese restaurant, with a loyal customer base and a reputation for excellent food and service. David introduced Maya to the rest of the staff as their new team member, but he didn't mention her story about the money. Maya was grateful for this because she wanted to be known for her work, not for her 15 minutes of fame. The other employees were welcoming, though she could tell some of them were curious about why the boss had personally hired this young woman. Maya started as a server assistant, helping to clean tables, refill drinks, and assist the experienced servers during busy periods. The work was fast-paced and demanding, but Maya approached it with the same determination she had shown in surviving on the streets. She was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, and she paid careful attention to everything she was taught. Mrs. Wu, the head server who had been working at Golden Dragon for 8 years, became Maya's mentor. She taught Maya not just the practical skills of restaurant work, but also the importance of treating every customer with respect and making them feel welcome. Mrs. Wu told Maya that in the restaurant business, you weren't just serving food, you were creating an experience for people. Within 2 weeks, Maya had proven herself to be a reliable and hardworking employee. David promoted her to full server status, which came with better pay and the opportunity to earn tips. Maya was amazed by how much she could earn in tips when she provided excellent service. Some customers were particularly generous when they recognized her from the news stories. Maya's schedule at the restaurant was arranged around her college classes, which had started in January. She was taking 4 classes: Introduction to Social Work, College Writing, Psychology, and Mathematics. The transition from being homeless to being a full-time college student with a job was challenging, but Maya was determined to succeed. College was harder than Maya had expected. She had been out of school for over a year, and some of the academic skills that had come naturally to her in high school were rusty. She struggled particularly with the writing class, where she was expected to write long essays analyzing complex texts. Math was also difficult because she hadn't taken advanced math courses in high school. But Maya had learned from her time on the streets that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign of intelligence. She went to her professor's office hours, used the tutoring services available at the college, and formed study groups with other students. Gradually, her grades began to improve. The psychology class was Maya's favorite. Learning about human behavior and development helped her understand her own experiences and gave her tools for helping others. Her professor, Dr. Sarah Kim, was impressed by Maya's insights during class discussions. Maya often shared perspectives that other students hadn't considered, drawing from her unique life experiences. One day after psychology class, Dr. Kim asked Maya to stay after class. She told Maya that she had heard about her story through the news and was impressed not just by Maya's integrity, but by her thoughtful contributions to class discussions. Dr. Kim asked if Maya would be interested in working as a research assistant on a project studying resilience factors in young adults who had experienced homelessness. Maya was honored by the opportunity, but she was also concerned about taking on another responsibility. She was already working at the restaurant, taking 4 classes, and trying to maintain some kind of social life. Dr. Kim assured her that the research work would be flexible and could count as an independent study credit, which would help her graduate faster. Maya decided to accept the research assistant position. The work involved interviewing other young adults who had experienced homelessness and helping to analyze patterns in their stories. Maya found this work deeply meaningful because it allowed her to use her own experiences to help understand and potentially solve problems that other young people were facing. Through her research work, Maya met other young adults who had faced similar challenges. Some had been in foster care like her. Others had left home due to family conflicts or abuse, and some had simply aged out of support systems without adequate preparation for independent living. Maya realized that her story, while unique in its media attention, was part of a much larger pattern of young people falling through cracks in the social safety net. Maya also discovered that she had a talent for connecting with people and helping them tell their stories. The young adults she interviewed often told her that talking to her was the first time they had felt truly heard and understood. Maya began to realize that her calling might be not just social work in general, but specifically working with homeless youth. Meanwhile, Maya's story continued to have ripple effects in unexpected ways. The soup kitchen where she had lived and worked saw a significant increase in donations and volunteers after her story gained national attention. Sarah, the volunteer coordinator, told Maya that they had been able to expand their services and help more people. because of the attention Maya's story had brought to their work. David's restaurant also benefited from the positive publicity. Many people came to Golden Dragon specifically because they wanted to support the business owner who had been so kind to Maya. David was initially uncomfortable with this attention, but he eventually realized that the increased business allowed him to hire more employees and provide better wages for his staff. One evening in March, about 4 months after Maya had found the money, something unexpected happened at the restaurant. Maya was serving a table of customers when she noticed one of them kept staring at her. The woman looked familiar, but Maya couldn't place where she might have seen her before. After the customers finished their meal, the woman approached Maya. She introduced herself as Margaret Thompson, and she explained that she was the director of a large non-profit organization that worked with homeless youth across the country. Margaret had been following Maya's story and was impressed not just by her initial act of honesty, but by everything she had accomplished since then. Margaret told Maya that her organization was looking for someone to serve as a youth advocate and spokesperson. The position would involve traveling to different cities, speaking at conferences and events, and helping to develop programs for homeless youth. It was a full-time position that paid well and included benefits, but it would mean leaving college and the restaurant. Maya was flattered by the offer, but she wasn't sure it was right for her. She had worked so hard to get into college and was finally making progress in her studies. She also felt loyal to David, who had given her a chance when no one else would. Maya asked Margaret if she could have some time to think about the decision. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the job offer and what it might mean for her future. On one hand, it was an amazing opportunity to help other young people and make a real difference in the world. On the other hand, she had always believed that getting her college degree was important for her long-term success. Maya decided to talk to the people whose opinions she trusted most. She spoke with David and Linda, who encouraged her to consider all her options carefully. They reminded her that she was still very young and would have many opportunities throughout her life. Dr. Kim, her psychology professor, had a different perspective. She pointed out that Maya's unique experiences and natural ability to connect with people might be more valuable than any degree. She also mentioned that many organizations would be willing to work around Maya's school schedule, or even help pay for her to finish college part-time. Sarah from the soup kitchen encouraged Maya to follow her heart. She reminded Maya that she had always said she wanted to help other young people, and this job would allow her to do that on a much larger scale than she had ever imagined possible. Maya also talked to Susan, David's daughter, who was finishing her journalism degree. Susan pointed out that Maya could potentially use the platform that came with the job to bring even more attention to the issues facing homeless youth. She could become not just a service provider, but an advocate for policy, changes that might prevent other young people from experiencing homelessness in the first place. After a week of careful consideration, Maya made her decision. She would accept the job offer, but she asked Margaret if she could work out an arrangement that would allow her to finish college part-time. Margaret was impressed by Maya's commitment to education and agreed to a flexible schedule that would allow Maya to take evening and online classes. Maya's last day at Golden Dragon was bittersweet. The entire staff threw her a small party, and many of the regular customers came by to wish her well. David and Linda presented her with a beautiful necklace that had belonged to David's grandmother, telling her that she would always be part of their family. Mrs. Wu, her mentor, gave Maya a piece of advice that she would carry with her forever. She told Maya that success wasn't measured by how much money you made or how famous you became, but by how many people you helped along the way and how true you stayed to your values. As Maya prepared to start this new chapter of her life, she reflected on how far she had come from that cold night when she found the bag of money. Maya's new job with the nonprofit organization, Youth Bridge America, officially started in May. Her first assignment was to attend a national conference on homelessness in Chicago, where she would be speaking on a panel about the experiences of young adults who had aged out of foster care. Maya had never spoken at a conference before, and she was nervous about addressing an audience of social workers, government officials, and other professionals. Margaret Thompson, her new boss, assured her that her authentic voice and personal experience were exactly what the audience needed to hear. The conference was unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. There were hundreds of people from across the country, all working in different ways to address homelessness. Maya attended workshops on topics like mental health services, job training programs, and affordable housing initiatives. She was amazed by how many people were dedicating their lives to helping others. When it was time for Maya's panel, she was surprised by how calm she felt once she started speaking. She told her story simply and honestly, focusing not just on her own experiences but on what she had learned about the challenges facing other young people in similar situations. She talked about the importance of treating homeless individuals with dignity and respect, and she emphasized that many young people experiencing homelessness were not there because of poor choices, but because of circumstances beyond their control. After her presentation, Maya was approached by dozens of people who wanted to learn more about her perspective. Several other young adults who had experienced homelessness thanked her for representing their experiences so accurately. Maya realized that she had found her calling, not just as someone who received help, but as someone who could help others. Over the next few months, Maya traveled to cities across the country, speaking at conferences, visiting programs for homeless youth, and consulting with organizations that wanted to improve their services. She saw firsthand how different cities approached the problem of youth homelessness, and she began to understand which strategies were most effective. In Seattle, Maya visited a program that provided tiny houses for young adults transitioning out of homelessness. The young people living there had their own small but private spaces, along with access to support services and job training. Maya was impressed by how the program helped people maintain their dignity while getting back on their feet. In Atlanta, she toured a drop-in center that provided services during the day for young people who might be staying in shelters or on the streets at night. The center offered showers, laundry facilities, internet access, and case management services. Maya noticed that the staff treated every young person with respect and didn't require them to meet certain conditions before receiving help. In Denver, Maya visited a program that specifically served young adults who had aged out of foster care. The program provided not just housing and services but also mentorship from adults who had successfully navigated similar challenges. Maya was moved by the relationships she saw between the mentors and the young people they were helping. Through all of her travels, Maya continued taking college classes online and during evening programs. It was challenging to balance her work, travel, and studies, but Maya was determined to finish her degree. She had learned that education opened doors and gave her credibility when she was advocating for policy changes. Maya also stayed in touch with the people who had been part of her journey. She called David and Linda regularly, and she visited them whenever she was in Los Angeles. She maintained her friendship with Sarah from the soup kitchen, and she continued to volunteer there when she was in town. She also kept in contact with Dr. Kim, who was now serving as an informal mentor as Maya considered graduate school options. One evening in August, Maya received a phone call that would lead to another unexpected opportunity. The caller introduced himself as James Rodriguez, a producer for a major television network. He explained that the network was interested in creating a documentary about Maya's story and the broader issue of youth homelessness. James told Maya that the documentary would follow her work over the course of several months, showing not just her personal story but also the work being done by various organizations to address youth homelessness. The goal was to create something that would educate the public and potentially influence policy at the national level. Maya was intrigued by the idea, but she was also cautious. She had learned from her earlier media experiences that being in the public eye came with both opportunities and challenges. She wanted to make sure that any documentary would focus on the issues and solutions, not just on her personal story. After several conversations with James and his team, Maya agreed to participate in the documentary project. She liked that the producers were committed to showing the complexity of homelessness and highlighting the work being done by organizations across the country. She also appreciated that they wanted to include other young people's voices, not just hers. The documentary filming began in September and continued for 4 months. Camera crews followed Maya as she visited programs, spoke at conferences, and met with young people who were experiencing homelessness. They also interviewed David, Sarah, Dr. Kim, and other people who had been part of Maya's journey. One of the most powerful parts of the documentary was filmed at the soup kitchen where Maya had once lived and worked. The producers interviewed several young people who were currently experiencing homelessness, and Maya was able to share resources and hope with them. Seeing Maya's success gave these young people proof that their current circumstances didn't have to define their futures. During the filming process, Maya met Roberto, a 17-year-old who had been living on the streets for 6 months after aging out of a group home. Roberto reminded Maya of herself when she had first become homeless, intelligent, determined, but overwhelmed by the challenges he was facing. Maya took Roberto under her wing, helping him navigate the system of services available in Los Angeles. She connected him with housing programs, helped him enroll in GED classes, and introduced him to people who could provide job training. Maya realized that mentoring other young people was one of the most rewarding parts of her work. The documentary, titled Finding Home: Maya's Story and the Fight Against Youth Homelessness, premiered on television in February, exactly 1 year after Maya had found the money. The response was overwhelming. The documentary not only brought national attention to the issue of youth homelessness, but also inspired viewers to get involved in their local communities. After the documentary aired, Maya received thousands of emails from people across the country. Some were from other young people who had experienced homelessness and found hope in her story. Others were from adults who wanted to volunteer or donate to organizations serving homeless youth. Several members of Congress reached out to Maya, asking her to testify before congressional committees about policies that could help prevent youth homelessness. Maya was nervous about speaking to elected officials, but she realized that this was an opportunity to influence change at the highest levels of government. Maya's testimony before Congress was clear and compelling. She spoke about the need for better support systems for young people aging out of foster care, the importance of mental health services, and the value of programs that treated homeless individuals with dignity and respect. She also shared specific examples of programs she had visited that were making a real difference in young people's lives. Following her congressional testimony, Maya was invited to join a national task force on youth homelessness. The task force included representatives from government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and advocacy groups. Maya was the only member who had personal experience with homelessness, and her perspective proved invaluable in developing recommendations for policy changes. As Maya reflected on the year since she had found the money, she was amazed by how much her life had changed. But more importantly, she was proud of how she had used her platform to help others. She had learned that true success wasn't measured by personal achievements, but by the positive impact you had on other people's lives. 2 years after finding the money, Maya stood before a crowd of 500 people at the National Youth Summit in Washington, D.C. She was no longer the scared, homeless teenager who had slept on theater steps. At 21, Maya had become a recognized voice in the fight against youth homelessness, but she had never forgotten where she came from. The summit was the culmination of the task force's work. Maya and her colleagues had spent months developing a comprehensive national strategy to prevent and end youth homelessness. The plan included increased funding for housing programs, better support for young people aging out of foster care, and job training initiatives specifically designed for homeless youth. As Maya delivered the keynote speech, she looked out at an audience that included government officials, social workers, nonprofit leaders, and most importantly, young people who were currently experiencing or had experienced homelessness. She spoke about the importance of seeing homeless individuals as human beings with potential, not just as problems to be solved. Maya shared the story of Roberto, the young man she had met during the documentary filming. With her help and his own hard work, Roberto had earned his GED, completed a job training program, and was now working as a mechanic while taking college classes part-time. He was sitting in the front row, beaming with pride as Maya told his story. After her speech, Maya was approached by Dr. Elizabeth Harrison, the president of a prestigious university. Dr. Harrison told Maya that she had been following her work and was impressed not just by her advocacy, but by her academic achievements. Despite her busy travel schedule, Maya had maintained excellent grades and was on track to graduate with her bachelor's degree in social work in just 6 months. Dr. Harrison offered Maya a full scholarship to pursue a master's degree in public policy at her university. The program would allow Maya to deepen her understanding of policy development and prepare her for even greater leadership roles in addressing social issues. Maya was honored by the offer and excited about the opportunity to continue her education. That evening, Maya attended a reception where she had the chance to meet with many of the people who had been influenced by her story. She was particularly moved to meet a group of college students who had started a nonprofit organization, inspired by her example. Their organization provided mentorship and support services for young people aging out of foster care. Among the reception attendees was Jennifer Walsh, the newspaper reporter who had first written about Maya's story. Jennifer told Maya that her article about returning the money had become the most read story in the newspaper's history. More importantly, it had inspired the newspaper to start an annual award recognizing individuals who demonstrated exceptional integrity and community service. Maya also reunited with David and Linda Chen, who had flown in from Los Angeles for the summit. David's restaurant business had continued to thrive, and he had opened 2 additional locations. He told Maya that he credited much of his success to the positive attention that came from their connection, but more importantly, that knowing Maya had inspired him to be more involved in community service. Susan Chen, David's daughter, was now working as a journalist and had written several articles about homelessness and social justice issues. She told Maya that covering her story had changed the direction of her career and inspired her to use journalism as a tool for social change. Later that evening, Maya received a phone call that would mark another significant milestone in her journey. Margaret Thompson from YouthBridge America called to tell her that the organization's board of directors had voted to promote Maya to Director of Youth Advocacy. At 21, Maya would become the youngest director in the organization's history. The promotion meant that Maya would have even more influence over the organization's programs and policies. She would be responsible for overseeing advocacy efforts across the country and would have a team of staff members working under her direction. Maya was excited about the opportunity, but also felt the weight of responsibility that came with it. As Maya prepared to return to Los Angeles the next day, she took a walk through the city where she had testified before Congress and helped develop national policy recommendations. She thought about how different her life might have been if she had made a different choice that cold night when she found the money. Maya realized that the decision to return the money hadn't just been about honesty. It had been about the kind of person she wanted to be and the kind of life she wanted to live. By choosing integrity over immediate gratification, she had set herself on a path that led to opportunities she never could have imagined. When Maya returned to Los Angeles, she visited the soup kitchen where she had once lived and worked. Sarah, who was still the volunteer coordinator, showed her around the facility, which had expanded significantly thanks to donations inspired by Maya's story. They now had twice as many beds and had added job training and educational programs. Maya also stopped by the old theater steps where she used to sleep. A small plaque had been installed there by the city, commemorating her story and serving as a reminder that every person has the potential for greatness, regardless of their current circumstances. Roberto met Maya at the theater steps. He wanted to show her something special. He pulled out his acceptance letter to a 4-year university, where he had been accepted into their engineering program with a full scholarship. Roberto told Maya that she had not only helped him find housing and services, but had also helped him believe in himself and his ability to achieve his dreams. Standing there at the place where her journey had really begun, Maya reflected on what she had learned over the past 2 years. She had discovered that wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the relationships you build and the lives you touch. She had learned that true success came not from what you accomplished for yourself, but from what you made possible for others. Maya had also learned that one act of integrity could create ripples that spread far beyond what you could imagine. Her decision to return the money had not only changed her own life, but had inspired thousands of other people to acts of kindness and service. It had brought attention to important issues and had contributed to policy changes that would help countless young people in the future. As Maya looked toward the future, she felt excited about the challenges ahead. She would finish her bachelor's degree, pursue graduate education, and continue her work advocating for homeless youth. She also planned to write a book about her experiences, hoping to reach even more people with her message about the power of integrity and the importance of helping others. Maya knew there would be obstacles ahead. The problem of youth homelessness was complex and wouldn't be solved quickly or easily, but she had learned that real change happened one person at a time, one decision at a time, one act of courage at a time. Standing on those theater steps where she had once felt invisible and forgotten, Maya smiled as she thought about all the young people she would have the chance to help in the years ahead. She had found something more valuable than any fortune. She had found her purpose, her voice, and her power to make a difference in the world. The homeless girl who had once wondered if anyone would notice if she disappeared had become someone whose voice was heard in the halls of Congress, whose story inspired people across the nation, and whose work was creating lasting change in the lives of vulnerable young people. Maya's story had begun with a choice to do the right thing when no one was watching. It had grown into a testament to the truth that integrity, compassion, and determination could overcome any obstacle. And most importantly, it had become proof that sometimes the greatest fortune you can find is the knowledge that you have the power to help others find their way home.